everybody, Tyrone the God 3 here. Yes, I haven't been living under a rock. I know the news, and a lot of you all want my opinions on it. I actually heard the news at work while I was checking through Twitter, and when I saw it, I immediately got tagged in a bunch of tweets saying, what is going to be your thoughts, Tyrone? And a lot of people had know which direction I'm basically going to go because of how I've been looking at Dragon Ball through the recent months, and I guess you could say years, as the series has gone out. And yes, I have been invested in Dragon Ball for a long time. As you can see from the stuff behind me, I'm a big Dragon Ball advocate. I love Dragon Ball. I love Dragon Ball Z. This is a series that I not only grew up with, but I picked apart and checked out several things that I like. So it's no secret that I am a huge Dragon Ball fan. So, to my surprise, obviously, after Dragon Ball Super ended, we were rumored that there was going to be a Dragon Ball movie anyway, but that was just it. It was just rumor, it was speculation, and then, obviously, once Dragon Ball Super ended, it came to light, with the rumors being true, showing that in December we were going to be treated to a Dragon Ball movie, and we didn't really get much except a interesting drawing of Goku in the icy regions, doing a couple of martial arts moves, and then that followed up with a mysterious sand. And naturally, I was so about the matter. On the one hand, I thought that Goku's art style was pretty interesting. You know, the vibrant colors really showed off his blue and orange on his gi very well. It looked like his hair had weight. You know, he looked a little bit younger, more like he did in Dragon Ball, the manga, when he entered the 22nd Budokai Tenkaichi tournament. And then after that, this is where things started to go downhill for me. It seems that we got a Saiyan as the villain, and I just sort of rolled my eyes at that. Well, the reason I rolled my eyes at that is because Dragon Ball has been having this bad habit of, if it sells, advertise it type of mentality, rather than doing a story that actually holds some weight, or making a move that would actually have me invested in Dragon Ball. It feels like it's weird when the most Dragon Ball thing I see that felt the most reasonable and down to earth was the Dragon Ball Fighters game that's come out. And that's the only thing I can think of. Everything else has been blown up to large proportions, all the way up from the Tournament of Power, which was just a cluster of a bunch of random unnecessary fighters and unnecessary fights for that matter, all the way up until the Dragon Ball Heroes Super whatever anime that I have made a stand on and have refused to watch. And yes, I still hold by that statement that I will not be watching that series. But anyway, so we fast forward a couple of months and lo and behold, the movie's details are revealed, and the movie's simply called Broly, and then there's some Japanese kanji at the bottom. I'm sure you all will correct me in the comments as to what exactly this movie's official name is. But all we know is that Broly is back, and this time Toriyama is taking the driver's seat when it comes to Broly. Now, for those of y'all who don't know or have no clue who Broly exactly is, never watched the Dragon Ball movies, or hell, never even watched Dragon Ball, which this is a weird part to jump into, Broly was introduced in the movie Broly the Legendary Super Saiyan, which was movie 8. And one thing that conflicts me about this movie is the timing in which this takes place, and they're doing this because Toriyama knows that Broly's a very popular Dragon Ball character. He's known this ever since around the same time he knew that Bardock was a very popular Dragon Ball character, which is why Bardock got a manga iteration that he made that was absolute trash, known as Dragon Ball Minus, which one day I will tackle. And then he got an episode of Bardock, which came bundled with Ultimate Tenkaichi, which was absolute trash. Or no, that came bundled with Dragon Ball's Connect, Dragon Ball Z Connect or whatever, which was absolute trash. And yeah, both of those were very bad because they retconned a lot of things that made the episode of Bardock, or the Bardock the Father of Goku special, so iconic. Bardock was a great character because of the Bardock the Father of Goku TV special. but the things that came after that were to promote Bardock made him a worse character in comparison. The same thing with Broly. Broly had the first movie, which was Broly the Legendary Super Saiyan, which he was an alright villain. I can see why he was so popular during his debut, because he was a juggernaut. He was literally the juggernaut of Dragon Ball Z, which meant a lot. Like, just this bulking, powerful warrior that was able to tank all these hits and start whooping up on all of these fighters. And I thought, well, why is Broly so interesting? There was a movie before Broly known as Super Android 13, where we literally had Super Android 13 and he did the exact same thing. And when I stopped to dissect it and break it down, I think the reason that Broly was so popular at the time was because he gave off the situation of, what if there was an evil Saiyan that was able to go Super Saiyan? By this time in the story, Vegeta wasn't exactly a good guy, but he was fighting on the good team. He was an anti-hero at this point. He was fighting on our side, but he still was only fighting for his own selfish reasons. So he wasn't a villain anymore, for real. He just became a neutral party. And by the time we had all the evil Saiyans, they mostly got wiped out. You know, we got Raditz, he got killed. We got Nappa, Vegeta killed him. Turles came very early and he got killed off. Bardock got killed off. All King Vegeta, all the Saiyans that we knew at this point were either dead since season 1 or dead before they even came into the canon of Dragon Ball. So they were all basically irrelevant. Broly was the first what if scenario where what if a Saiyan was evil and he had the ability to go Super Saiyan, but because he's evil, his Super Saiyan needs to mean a lot more than just Goku, Trunks, Vegeta, and Gohan turning Super Saiyan. And at the time, it was a nice premise. Even as a kid, I was exhilarated. It was like a roller coaster ride. But just like a roller coaster ride seems to have all of its hype ended once the ride comes to a close. Growing up, I realized that Broly, there wasn't really much to him. I mean, they had a little bit going for him during his first movie, but then they got overzealous and they decided to make Broly Second Coming, and then we got Bio Broly of all things, which that in itself was a train wreck pretty much waiting to happen. We got once we got that, we got Broly and all these other things. A 4D movie in Japan where Broly turns Super Saiyan like 4 or whatever. Then there's another Broly thing where he makes a cameo in all these video games. In Raging Blast, he turns Super Saiyan 3. In Dragon Ball Heroes, he's got all these other forms. At this point, it felt like the internet, even before the internet, it felt like the world just had its full share of Broly. Like, even in the game Dragon Ball Attack of the Saiyans, Broly's in it. And it's so out of place because this takes place during the first half of the last half of Dragon Ball and the Saiyan saga of Dragon Ball Z. And it's so weird to see Broly just there as a secret boss because it's like he doesn't belong. The Super Saiyan wasn't even a thing during this point in the story, yet Broly's there, super legendary Super Saiyan and all. And it just had no real context behind it other than, hey, people like Broly, so here he is. And it became a point where you couldn't look at a Dragon Ball video game without seeing Broly or Bardock in it, you know? He was in Budokai 3, he was obviously in Raging Blast, and he was in all these other things. And at this point, I got sick of Broly. And to me, Broly was just his character. I knew he was strong, but I felt like his strength was always over-exaggerated. He's not as strong as, to me, he was about as strong as Gohan at Super Saiyan 2 or Cell just at Perfect. He wasn't strong as Super Perfect Cell or anything. He was just, just that. But back to the movie. So it's clear here that Broly is supposed to be the focus of the movie, and Toriyama decides to take the driver's seat and making Broly. Because if you don't know, yes, Broly is in Dragon Ball Z movies, but he's not created by Akira Toriyama. He's actually created by Takao or one of the editors, one of the people that was on the Toei staff, basically, is who made him. Toriyama gave the thumbs up and gave the drawing for him, but the character was created by someone from Toei, and that's how Broly took off. And while his second movie, to me, looking back at his second movie, Broly Second Coming, it's okay in terms of giving development towards Gohan, Videl, Goten, and Trunks. But even that, kind of dilutes Broly's character, because at least in the first movie he had dialogue. He had like the iconic lines like, I'm not just I'm more than a monster, I'm the devil, or whatever. And then in the other movies, he just says Kakarot. He's devolved to only saying Kakarot. He's like, Kakarot. And then in the third movie he's in, Bio Broly, he doesn't say anything. He's not even actual Broly. He's a clone that got destroyed in mid-cloning because he got hit with some salt water or something. And then he just like, bleh. He doesn't say anything at that point. He's just some goopy monster. And at this point, I felt like Broly absolutely needed to die. Like, there was no reason at all why he needed to exist. He was a muck of his former self. And I felt no reason to keep pushing him. And to me, it feels like the reason I'm so mad, it's not even just the reason that Broly's in the movie is why I'm mad. Like, that's not the core reason of why I'm upset. Yeah, it's upsetting because it shows that popularity rules over everything else. I don't think this movie's going to have a good story. They keep saying it will. Toriyama even has made notes saying that this will be interesting and it'll take place in like a interesting setting and go back to the lore of the Saiyans and stuff, which Toriyama's basically rewriting Broly's entire canon, which, you know what, that has some conflicting thoughts in it too. And the reason I say that is because I always felt that Broly, at least his first movie, I always felt was one of the most interesting movies. Mostly because Broly's movie was one of the few movies that can actually fit into the continuity of Dragon Ball Z without any contradictions, you know. Cell gave everyone 9 days to prepare for the tournament. And in those 9 days, you can see that the Broly's movie happened, you know. South Galaxy got destroyed. And during that time, they're all hanging out and they're living life, and Broly just happened to be in the middle of all that. And it's also weird because after that, I think Hatchak attacked. So yeah, they had quite a week to deal with some other villains before they dealt with Cell. And I always felt it was appropriate. I felt that those were appropriate placements for movies during that 9-day gap that Cell had the Z Warriors just sort of chill and get ready for the tournament. So I never really had a problem with Broly being somewhat canon in the story. Just in my own little head canon, I always felt like Broly belonged. But in this one, what they're doing is that they're rewriting his canon altogether. So now they have no history of ever fighting Broly or ever seeing Broly. This will be the first time they actually see Broly. And one of the biggest issues I have isn't even that Broly's making an appearance. My issue is that not only is Broly being hyped up again for the 47,000th time, it's the fact that what they've done, and you can clearly see it in the poster. Dragon Ball, and I'll just pull out a random movie here. Dragon Ball always has the habit of doing what they can to show off as many characters as possible that are going to be participating in the movies, right? You know, you got Vegeta, you got Gohan, you got Trunks, Piccolo, you know, Goten, all of the ones that basically participate in fighting off against Beerus here. And you can clearly see that. And even in Resurrection F, you can see that all of the other characters, you know, our Piccolo's there, Krillin, you know, they're showing that off. Well, here in the poster, all we see is Goku and Vegeta. So it's clear where this movie is going. It's clear that they've given in to the fact that only Goku and Vegeta matter. If you're not Goku and Vegeta, then you don't even really belong in this movie. And I know we've seen artwork for Frieza and Piccolo and all of that, but honestly, I really only see this movie going one direction, and it's Goku and Vegeta can't beat Broly, so Goku's gonna have to go Ultra Instinct and beat Broly or whatever. And I feel like this movie is doing its hardest to justify Broly's existence. But at the same time, they really don't need to. And also, and this is to bring up one of the other movies again. Resurrection F, after looking at it for quite a bit of time, I've had time to watch it. And you can clearly see in these movies where Toriyama actually has decided to give a damn versus where he's decided to check out and let Toei take over. Where he just sort of does his little sketches or notes here and there. When Battle of Gods came out, to me, Battle of Gods is the best Dragon Ball Z movie ever. And I still stand behind that statement because I felt Toriyama's love in this movie. It felt genuine. Beerus was an original character, and he was well introduced into the series, and all of the cast were used effectively, whether they were effective comic relief or they effectively fought in the story in some way, shape, or form, and it was clear what their roles were. Here, it's obvious that only Goku and Vegeta are the characters that matter in this movie, and that's a problem. Because literally, every time I look back at this movie, I get disappointed. Because Goku and Vegeta are around the exact same power. You can see here that they're even at the top of the movie. Once they show up, the threat is basically negated. Because it's two of them. See, in other movies, it was interesting because no one could defeat the villain. The villain was clearly stronger than everybody by a large margin. Here, we only get Goku and Vegeta being the only two that even stand a bit of a chance against the villain, and it's only one villain, and it's Frieza, and he's not dramatically stronger than Goku and Vegeta, he's just slightly stronger than them. So even if Goku loses, Vegeta can still take over the fight. The problem with this movie is that only two people are going to be in the movie actually doing the fighting. Everybody else is going to be fodder, and they're not even going to come close. See, when Broly's first movie came out, everybody was around even strength. You know, Goku was strong because he had full power Super Saiyan, so him and Gohan were stronger than your regular Super Saiyan. But they had a good respiratory system going so that they could maintain Super Saiyan a lot longer. Vegeta and Trunks had the Ascended Super Saiyan transformations, which means that they were a bit stronger than Goku and Vegeta, but they couldn't maintain their energy long enough, so they had to balance it out a little. Piccolo had fused with Kami, so he was a Super Namek, so he was stronger than a Super Saiyan. So all of them were around the same level, and they were still losing to Broly. It was still clear that Broly was an imminent threat in the movie. He was something to be feared. Here, I see what they're going to do is that they're just going to have Goku and Vegeta get their butts kicked a bunch of times with none of the other characters serving any other purpose. And that's a problem to me. Because it's clear that the reason that Broly's here in the first place is because Toriyama decided to put him into the movie because he's responding to the popularity of what Broly is. This isn't any different than how Bardock was treated. And honestly, I think this is what happened with Bardock. Bardock was so popular that Toriyama decided to put Bardock in, and then he had a manga appearance in Dragon Ball Minus, which was very terribly received, and now Bardock's just sort of in this weird hidden zone where he's mentioned a lot because of Bardock, the father of Goku, but he's not going to be utilized for real because he's been utilized to the point where his character's not even that likable anymore. And I feel that's what's going to happen here. Broly himself wasn't even an interesting character in his own movie. Broly became an interesting character during only because he was this juggernaut of a villain. But to be honest, and I say this in my Dragon Ball movie reviews if you watch it, I state that Paragus is a more interesting villain than Broly because he has an actual backstory reason as to why he hates Vegeta and King Vegeta and you know, the peasant Saiyan versus this higher monarchy of Saiyans and the infighting in between Saiyans and the politics behind it all and how Frieza is still looming in the background as being the strongest, but there's someone stronger. It's just they fear that they'll be overthrown by them. So I loved the lore and the layers that they had between the Saiyan hierarchy and how it can affect, you know, one person and enrage that person. Broly was a baby during all of this, so his only trait was that he was mad that Goku was crying next to his incubator, which I think was completely idiotic of a reason to have a villain even partake in what was going on. If anything, Vegeta should have been his trigger. Like, oh, he looks a lot like the guy who tried to stab me when I was a baby. Vegeta, like, roid out. But it's clear what they're doing here, and honestly, I know you guys expected me to like roid out and get furious and turn into Broly myself, just out of the rage, but honestly, I'm more disappointed than angry at the fact that it's clear what's been happening, and it was clear even when Dragon Ball Super was coming to an end, or hell, even during Dragon Ball Super, it's clear what's been happening to Dragon Ball when they made that Super anime. It's clear what's been going on, and it's that Dragon Ball has become a sellout series. And that's really all there is to it. It's a real shame too, because I really loved like the story and the characters, but it's clear now that they overuse characters or overuse plot elements just because they're popular. But with that said, everybody, I'll see you all then, everybody. Sorry to say, I'll watch the movie just to see what's going on, but I'm not really looking forward to it. So with that said, Tyrone the God 3, out, everybody.